Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Break Free, Find Joy podcast. I am your host, Brandy Sickles, and I am so extremely excited to be sharing this episode with you. I interview my dear friend, Veronica-Lamb, and we talk about her new Meditation with God app that she's releasing and we just have a really great conversation, and I hope that you hear our hearts and the friendship between the two of us. And I look forward to interviewing her again, like I said in the episode, as many times as she'll come back is the amount of times that I will interview her. So thank you so much for showing up, for listening, and as always, much love. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to introduce our guest to you. She is one of my best friends. She's an absolute justice powerhouse. She's a prayer warrior and just one of my biggest mentors. I'm incredibly thankful to have her in my life. You have heard her name multiple times on the podcast so far if you've listened. Veronica-Lamb.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thanks for inviting me.
So there's a lot that I want to talk about, but first, my favorite thing that I like to do is I like to start with a question of what is it that you're doing right now that brings you joy, whether it's this season, this day, it changes for me a lot, but what does that look like for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I like that. One of the things that I felt really called to focus on this particular season, maybe this particular few weeks, has been thankfulness. And I've noticed that just seeing the sky and seeing nature and things like that is helping me to be thankful. So waking up even when I'm tired. So, full disclosure, I did not sleep well last night. I was awake in the middle of the night, but then I got up even though I didn't have to. But, I tried getting up on time, and it was it doesn't matter. Just get dressed, put on my clothes, put the dog on a leash. And I have this morning drink that's always in my routine. And I'm just get outside. And so that sort of simple, wake up, ideally change my clothes out of pajamas and go outside has been, I don't know, I've just been feeling really thankful and really blessed. I feel like that sets the perspective for the whole day really well for me.
I love that. That's definitely something big in this season. I'm in the Midwest. Oh, that's something fun for the viewers to know. Veronica's actually in Hawaii right now. So it's a 5-hour time difference and all of that. But so for us Midwesterners, it's a really exciting time this week because we have sun and 60, almost 70-degree weather. So like that's been one of my favorite things of oh, I'm going to get outside and let the sun hit my skin.
Mm. That's awesome. It's so good. It's funny, my kids, they were asking about seasons because Hawaii doesn't have, it's very easy to not notice the seasons in Hawaii, right? And so the idea of spring and all these flowers budding forth and leaves coming back on the trees and stuff like that, they have no concept of, and they're just does this really happen? Where in the world does this happen? And I was all over the mainland, but it's such a special time of year. And I feel like it can create even more thankfulness, when you've been in a season where you haven't seen it and then suddenly everything's blooming or the leaves are starting to bud, you get those first few warm days. It's cool.
Absolutely. It shifts the whole, it's very helpful for me to have a physical or scene shift
Mm-hmm.
along with other things. So for me, it's been all of it coming together, like, oh, I'm getting to record this episode with you that I've been looking forward to, like, oh, that's finally happening. And I have some things going on with work that are finally moving forward and things like that. Like it just feels like everything is moving together, and that yeah, just the weather and physical shifts going along with it is like, oh, it's real. It's alive.
It's so helpful. Yeah.
Uh, so there are some things that are super exciting that you're doing right now that I find fascinating and incredibly helpful to myself personally. And I like really, really believe it's going to help a lot of people outside of myself as well. So I would love to have you talk about um, the I believe you're calling it the Meditation with God series, and um, kind of how you felt called to do that. And also, I just wanted to say thank you again, because I'm like honored to see the process. Like I forgot that you had started it so long ago until you started the launching process, and I was like, whoa, this has been so cool to see the growth and involvement in it, and then to see it out there now is super incredible and very impactful.
That's awesome. I love your intro to this. And thank you. So yeah, I guess I would say, so if I started like sort of the beginning of it, like 2020 was obviously hard for like everybody. And like part of that was things that I had and designed sort of my life to be. Like I really liked the way things were working. And then suddenly COVID hits and it just like strips away all of that, and felt like that it really forced me into positions that I had worked my whole life to not be in, and to be able to have I don't freedom and variety in my days and in my work and all of this kind of stuff, right? So it was hard. So there was days where I was literally like walking around my neighborhood, not in the spirit of thankfulness for the sky, but just like crying and walking around my neighborhood because I'm like, why is this my life right now? Like just, mad about things being different than how I want them, right? But so in that was just a tough process, and it went on for a while. But part of it was like, what do I need to do to like get myself together? And I felt this encouragement. Like I don't know, I connect easily with like the spiritual realm and with God and things like that. So like I describe a lot of things as feelings, right? So like I just felt that I needed to get up, and I called it like greet the day. And I needed to go outside. I needed to feel the sun on my skin and just like on my face. And I just needed to go outside, and that would make a difference. And I wasn't sure why. And so I did that. I like honored that feeling and like stepped into that with obedience. And then one of those mornings, I was just sitting quietly and like asking a question to God. And I don't know what I asked him, but he just sort of downloaded. And what I mean is like, he just gave me these thoughts in a very sequential order. And they were actually questions, and there was 24 of them. And it was this like series that I could go through, but then it seemed like that it could be helpful to other people. And I was like, okay, this is really, really interesting. And it was kind of built around this like greeting the day kind of practice that he was giving me. And it ended up being basically it turned into, so from that point and over the next like year and a half, it turned into this 24-day series where it is a guided meditation with God. And like we use visualization, and we also use like intelligent ways to just get our body to engage into the process, so that when we want to shift how it is that we're feeling, when we want to shift our way of thinking, we can do it like holistically and very quickly. And so it's just this 5-minute daily practice. And it's been totally cool to bring it in and to introduce it to my health coaching clients, right? Because I was doing this gut health coaching, and I've always done a lot of mentoring, a lot of growth, like with women through my social justice stuff. But I was like, how does this fit into my business? I'm like, wait, is this supposed to go over here to like ministry and this kind of stuff? And I just really felt like, no, it's supposed to be in the business. And so it's been really interesting to just like organically like work with that and like step in faith of like, okay, I feel like this is important. I'm going to create it. I'm not exactly sure who it's for. So I recorded it months before it was ever released. And I wasn't even sure how it was going to be released, but I was just trying to be obedient and to step in faith with what I was feeling.
Yes. It, I remember because I've worked with Veronica for about 2.5 years more with like the coaching. And then I've known her for almost 8 years now, I believe. But I remember when you started asking me the questions like, okay, let's connect with God. Let's do a quiet time and like, let's ask the questions. And that was always super powerful for me. One, because sometimes when I think I had gotten into this habit of when I prayed or something like that, like I'm more dumping my heart and trying to give him all the things that I'm struggling with, that a lot of times I never focused on really like I would ask a question, but then dump out all my like worries about the question or things like that, that it was hard for me to ask a question and then receive something from him. So that was a super powerful shift for me. And then also having somebody else lead it and having those questions felt more natural for me to begin with because it didn't feel like it put pressure on me. So listening to you and then having those questions put me in a listening space, which allowed me to receive those things like you had spoken about. And I just thought that that was like, whoa, this is incredibly helpful. So that's when it became more of a reaching out to you like, hey, you got a minute for a quick phone call because I need to work through this and like I'm not getting anything. So then when you asked about like, I think I need to do something with this, like, is it helpful? Like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, I wish I could wake up every morning and have this ready to go because I like it was still so new that I didn't know how to do it on my own. So it's just like an incredible framework. Like I just am so thankful that God allowed me to be part of it then and then to see where it's at now. And I don't remember if it was how many days that you had sent that I had seen before, but when you released it and I did it again, like it was all like brand new again. It didn't matter that like I didn't remember ever listening to it before. I was like, oh, I don't know what I got last time, but this time I got this and it fits perfectly with this right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how you remind me that like through that like year and a half, like before it was released, right? It was like testing it out with individuals like you, right? Like one-to-one clients and then also different group sessions and just being like, okay, let me start like throwing out some of these questions. Let me start helping people. I call it like shift the atmosphere because I feel like the world and the stress and all the crap that we have to do like just keeps building up, you know what I mean? And it's like all this noise. And one of the things that I've noticed that I can help people do, people who are like not religious, who would not identify as Christian and like all this kind of stuff that I've interacted with. But a lot of times it's like they had a problem or they needed something solved. And I interact with them and they describe it as if there's peace and there's relaxation, right? So it's like, I somehow like God has gifted me with this ability to like shift the atmosphere. And if they're comfortable with like any form of prayer, it becomes really easy to change it and just to be like, no, that noise shut down now. And we're going to take a minute and we're going to tune in and we're going to relax and we're going to allow our body to calm down and our mind to calm down and our own spirit to like rise up. And then we can really feel what is the question that's burning inside of us. And then we can pause, like we're relaxed enough to be able to pause for a minute and actually sense the response back and tune into our body or into our mind, the different ways in which we get sensations there. And it's a powerful experience. It's a powerful experience for me. And then thinking that like, wait, this may be the way, like to be able to give this to other people and they can experience it wherever they are, and then the one-to-one sessions, right? It's like when we have a blind spot, I mean, I'm like this. I assume other people are like this, right? Like when we have a blind spot and we have this burden that feels so heavy, or we have this issue that feels so difficult. And it's like, we can't see the forest for the trees, right? Everything is in our face. It's so helpful to have that like guided interaction, and I have people that I reach out to because I get stuck sometimes too. I need people to help me. And then I use this myself. And now that I have it, like just on my phone, it's at the touch of a button and we can just like use it, it's, I don't know. It's interesting. It's like explaining this like vague and supernatural thing that is very quick. It's only 5 minutes. It somehow like shifts everything, mind, body, and spirit. Like trying to put it into words is difficult, but it's incredibly effective. And then to see people get answers, like in the personal coaching, they get answers to something, a problem or an issue or something that they've been struggling with for years, maybe even decades. And there's just like clarity or like some sort of shift of like hope, and they realize there is a path forward. I don't know. It's really incredible. Like I'm so honored to be a part of it. Like I see myself more as like a facilitator than a creator, if that makes sense. Like particularly in this series.
Yeah. I think and when you had asked me about how it went, like what my favorite part of it was when we did the group session and just hearing you talk and like feeling all the things in my body again, like the biggest thing for me was community, because out here I really haven't found my local church or my spiritual tribe out here. Like it can be really hard and really lonely. And sometimes I forget that, like, it's this weird paradigm of like, sometimes I can get hyper focused on myself and my loneliness. And then other times I feel like I'm so small and disconnected. Like there's this big stuff out here, but I'm not a part of it. And this just feels so connecting. And when I listen to those and knowing that there's other people listening to those, and just the way that God is working through it, it just connects me to the spirit, and I just feel like I'm with and praying alongside everyone else and really connecting to the body of God. And the amount of peace, joy, relief that brings is incredible. And there's days where I know like I forget, and then the next day I listen to it and I'm like, oh, well, that would have been helpful yesterday had I remembered. And I just find it fascinating and beautiful to have that community, because like we have Facebook and we have all these things and connecting with you, but yeah, just having that on an app where I'm not even actually speaking to you in the moment, but still being able to have that connection. So with our time change, sometimes it might not be a time I can reach out to you, but I do have this as a resource now that can help me connect to something bigger than myself, which is just incredible.
That's really cool. I mean, I just really appreciate you giving that perspective, because I don't think that you shared with me specifically like how you feel that you sense community and you feel as if you are a part of community even when you're by yourself and you're listening to the audio. There's still something like bigger that you're connecting to and with others. And so that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because I don't know if I really was able to put that in words until hearing you talk about it. And then, like, yeah, just getting the feelings on like the goosebumps and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what it is. Like, one of the days I was taking a walk and it happened to be nicer outside. I think this was last month or probably about 2 weeks ago. And I had one earbud in and the other out because I had the kids with me. But I could hear the birds chirping. And that's one of my favorite things about like being outside, especially when it's nice outside like that, just brings me a lot of joy. And then birds flew overhead and I could hear them chirping. And it felt like we were in the same place. And I was like, whoa, thank you, God, for that. Like, because I had been feeling particularly lonely and heavy and just a lot of feelings that I didn't know what to do with. And in that moment, it was able to be like, I don't have to know it right now. And I can relax in knowing that somebody is taking care of me.
That's cool. I like how you describe that in your body, like one, the senses, right? Because this is one of the things that it's a practice. And the reason why I think it's a 24-day journey is that we need to do it repetitively, because we have to tune back in to our, not only our physical body sensations, our mental like clues and memories and things that are coming back up, and our spiritual sense. Like there's a lot of that that gets numbed when we're only focused on, the to-do list at hand, and like, okay, get breakfast, get everybody out the door, get to, like here on time, and then, do the things, and then get back home, and then feed everybody, and, hopefully most people take a bath or something like that. Like with kids, you're just like, oh, if we can just do whatever the bare necessity is today and like make it to bed, then that's a good day. Sometimes, right? There's all this chaos and all this external stimulation and scheduling and I don't know, pressures and all this kind of crap. And so I felt like, and for me, it's really nice to just push that stuff back and have just a couple of minutes of like peace and quiet and of tuning in. And I think that you talk about like you were feeling lonely and that you can see you on video, right? And you're demonstrating this of like your shoulders are up and like they're tense and like, it's like your body isn't taking like full breaths, your chest isn't expanding, like all of this, right? And I think some people could ask like, why as like a health coach, and I was asking this at the beginning, like, why as a health coach, why am I bringing this in? And this is going to be a part of my business. Like, I don't really get it, but that's a massive part of like how we make healthy decisions and how we decide how we're going to comfort ourselves is about the stress that we're feeling in the moment, right? And we often pick up what I would call false comforts when we don't know, and those false comforts like in the world, like whether it be, however we over comfort ourselves, like in the world, right? If our spirit, if our mind is agitated and out of alignment, it's real hard for us just on our own to get ourselves back into alignment or recognize what's going on, right? And so like, but it's so important because we don't make the healthy decisions when we're in that space. We make the desperate decisions when we're in that space. And so it's been really, it's wild. It's really cool to like see how people experience this differently and then also uniquely. And they can even experience repetitively, but like each time is unique to them, right? It's just like, I don't know, it's a trip.
Yeah. The other features that are added in the app that you've created with this that I find super helpful too, um, the tracking that you've added and being able to put notes in there and things like that. Like, I've also find it helpful. One, it's more accountability that I need to have for myself and to remember, like being able to look back on, oh, on this day, I was at a 7 for my anxiety, and looking back at what it is and then moving forward, because that was my score, I think 2 weeks ago. And now I'm coasting more on a 3 or 4. And that's normally like before I do it. And it's just really nice to see that I look back and seeing that I am improving, or if I see a spike, then I can also see like, oh, ask myself a question, which again is something that was incredibly helpful for me because I never really thought to dig in so much. Like I would wonder, but not question, I would say. So this practice has helped me move from wondering to questioning and being active in it and partnering with myself, with you, with God. Like it just moved me into more of a place of action. And yeah, like when I started this podcast, when I had gotten coaching started with you, and then I got coaching through Brendan Burchard's thing, my big thing was like my whole goal was to take time for myself because I can't take care of anybody else unless I'm taking care of myself. And knowing that I was running on survival mode, this has become part of my self-care practice. And knowing that it can be incredibly hard to step away, it's necessary because it puts me in the right mindset to be able to move forward. Even if it seemed counterproductive, because I think a lot of the people that I talk to right now, they're like, I don't have time. Like I can't. So for this being 5 minutes and it's right on your phone and you can do it anytime, anywhere. Like there's times where I have started it and I've had to pause it. And that's the other thing that I love. Like I can pause it, or if I'm having a hard time connecting, I can pause it and I can get myself in the right space and then click play to be able to move forward.
Yeah. Right. Because it's like our lives are busy. Like my life is busy. Like I want people to know I'm not a person that just like naturally like sits down and does nothing. Like I am not a person that just like naturally sits and like meditates. Like my mind is going in a million places. It's like a bunch of squirrels all over the place, right? There's no ducks in a row. There's just squirrels everywhere. And I have like a million ideas. And it's so, I needed something even for myself. And I feel like that this was a solution that I also got for myself, right? Because I was like kind of going crazy and just so frustrated at things like not being right. And, there's all these like pat answers and all these experts on like TV and all through the world. And I was like, I don't want to hear your opinions. Like, it's just your opinion about you and your situation. Like, I need something beyond this. Like, I need wisdom that's beyond just another person, like throwing out some idea. And so it was really helpful, right? But it's like, it's gotta be, if it's not practical, if it's not applicable, I'm not going to do it. Nobody else is going to be able to do it, right? Like we needed something that we could do quickly, that we could also pause, that isn't complicated to get to either. You know what I mean? Like, as in it's got to be like easily accessible. And like, like even like emails, like I don't open up all my email. I don't open up most of my emails.
Yeah.
I am not a zero inbox person. I am a 50,000 unread emails person per box that I have. Like it's just
Yep. I'm like, you better tell me it's coming or I'm probably gonna miss it.
yeah, like warming, right? So it's like I don't know, having something that fits into a busy schedule, it doesn't work, for the person who like has struggled with meditation before, they don't have time to go to a 1 hour yoga class, or they aren't the person who naturally like just sits down and like prays for like a half an hour or something like that, right? Like this is more for, yeah, the busy person, the busy mind, maybe the kind of like fidgety body that likes to be active and moving. This is a way to get the results and to get the centeredness without it like taking a million hours,
Yes, because I will say I've done other meditations. I think they're fine. I've used the Calm app and like it's nice. I can not do things that like I've tried the 20-minute ones and I'm like after about 5 6 minutes I'm think like oh I'm like at least halfway through and I'm like it's been 3 minutes, I can't do this, or my kids come and then I'm like oh it's ruined. So
Yeah.
this it's nice and it's interactive, so it's incredibly helpful when you when your mind doesn't quite like that, like it's still practical for people who can do that too, but it's just really nice if you're someone whose brain just doesn't really can't latch on to that right now.
Yeah.
Like it's such a nice starter point, I would say, in a lot of aspects, like spiritually and meditation wise, and just mentally being able to. Oh, that's why I had that written down. Safety, like when you're just coming back to yourself and you don't feel completely safe in your like body necessarily, like this is a safer start because I was really struggling again with my intuition and feeling safe in who I was when you launched it again. I was in such a hard time, like knowing what were my emotions versus what was situational and all those things. This provided a safe way of doing that. And it's not super intense. Like you kind of have control on how intense it gets,
Mm-hmm.
which I find incredibly helpful, especially in those cases of not like 5 minutes. The way that I looked at it when I was really struggling, when I first started going through it again, was I can do the uncomfortable for 5 minutes. Like if it starts to feel hard or something, I
Mm-hmm.
know that I can make it through this and then be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like a win. Like it doesn't feel too hard and it still feels like a win.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think like, I mean, so like in my work, like the social justice kind of work, right? Like I work with a lot of women, mostly children, sometimes men, but people coming out of human trafficking situations and usually sex trafficking situations. So there's like a lot of fresh trauma like going on. And a lot of this, I felt like in the process of creating it, I was reminded of and able to pick sort of like the best practices of like, how do I, how did I in the past, like help somebody who was in a really triggered state and may have some really negative experiences, even with the idea of God or religion or spirituality, because there's a lot of that kind of abuse also wrapped up
Mhm.
in the trafficking world, also, and help individuals feel comfortable enough to like get quiet, or how to help them like reconnect with their body if they've been disconnected or disassociated to some degree. And I mean, I guess I should say here, like I didn't create it as like a therapy piece. Obviously, for somebody who's been through a lot of trauma, it doesn't replace that. But it is something where I used all of those experiences to try and inform, like, okay, if I was sitting beside or if I was literally talking to somebody that was in a difficult space, how can I pull from those like tools that I've learned over the years and I've practiced for over a decade? How can I pull that in and bring it together? And I don't think that we've really talked about that. So again, I really appreciate like you sharing your experiences and like how that feels. And I appreciate the confirmation of like some of that intention was able to be carried through and helping people in a safe way tune into, you know, God, the creator of the universe, perfect light, perfect truth, like whatever it is that they're comfortable with, and feeling like that it's okay to like, it's safe to sit and listen or to ask a question, like it is that calming, it is that grounding sense. And it isn't overwhelming or too busy or, like whatever, triggering. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Like now I can feel like the emotions. So for anybody listening, my big thing for which I didn't realize until I'd gone to blue water, but for me, when I'm deeply connected or spiritually sensing something, I get overcome with emotion, and sometimes it comes out joyfully, but a lot of times it's just sobbing. And sometimes it's connected to happiness, sometimes it's sorrow, sometimes it's just tears. Like, but yeah, as you're talking about it and the intention and stuff, like again, it just reminds me of like I feel connected, and I also just feel really grateful and thankful that God is working with you and partnering with you. And then that I also get to be a part in spreading it, not only like being involved in using it to help myself, but being able to have you on to interview you so other people can know about it. Um, because that intention is there and it's pure. And those are people that I feel like are forgotten a
Mm-hmm.
lot in society, or because it's hard. It is hard to, when you're trying to move forward in your life where you are really blessed, it's hard to have that exist in the same point in time that somebody else is going through such trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And then you automatically, as humans, we feel like we have to make our pain smaller because theirs is bigger than ours, rather than acknowledge we all have pain. How can we come together? And again, like that's just again a big connection piece for me, that it feels so big and beautiful and chaotic and wonderful, that hopefully this is going to be another tool to come back to connection and love and peace, um, within what is the human experience.
Mm, mm. I like your point there. And that's a good question. Oh, I might have to stand up and let my dog out of the room for a second. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, I just, the focus on the human experience. And I think these past couple of years, like obviously we've all been through a lot. Like it's been crazy, the ups and downs and the unknowns with like viruses, with jobs, with economies, with like present day right now is like concerns of like war and all of this. And then we've also really had it shown in our faces, our shortcomings, I feel like,
Mhm.
as societies, as individuals. I mean, I think a lot of people, I will call it the opportunity. They've had the opportunity to do a lot of self-reflection,
Mm.
a lot of difficult topics that have been brought front and center, especially around justice issues and things like that, and personal issues and personal rights. And you know what I mean? There's just been so many vibrant conversations out there and front and center. And we have that opportunity to reflect. Sometimes all of that conversation out there can feel like pressure, or we see all of the pain or the hurt out there and we feel the pressure of that. And my personal opinion is that there's a ton of good in the world and there's a ton of good energy. I do believe that there is also evil, or some people would call it resistance. There are things that try and like drag us down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, the way in which we feel empathy, the way in which we have self-reflection, and these are very positive things that we need to have. I feel like there is resistance or there is evil that will try and grab hold of that and twist it and use it as a way to keep us from making forward progress, as opposed to being able to use it as a way to grow ourselves. And to me, this sort of getting quiet and getting centered, this is how we learn to self-regulate. This is how we learn to tune into like, what do I actually feel? Not like what is all the pressure that I'm getting from the world, but what is it that's important to me? What is true to where my spirit is, right? And where what I feel is important right now for my life, for my world, for my kids, my family, like whatever it is, right? It's like sort of like that getting quiet, because all of the noise and all of the other people's opinions, that doesn't actually tell us what's right and wrong. You know, we've got to sort that out like internally. And then even when it's just that couple of minutes and we have the chance to do that, that makes such a dramatic difference than how we show up in the world, how we show up to conversations, how we show up to people that have different opinions to us, right? How we show up to care for others. Like, for one example, instead of moving out of a sense of obligation, guilt, or shame, we can move out of a sense of love, out of compassion, out of feeling like that we have enough to be able to give, or we have enough to be able to share, whether that be time or whether that be materials, whatever it is, right? Completely different place in which we're working out of. It creates different results in the people that we're interacting with around us, whether again, that be workplace, family, or service. It's just completely different. And it uses energy in a different way from us. And that is where it gets tied back to the healthy side of things. Like, we have to be healthy when we're serving and when we're caring for others, whether that be family or whether that be volunteer opportunities or whether that be at work and we're pushing ideas and new projects. Like, the energy that we are moving out of makes a difference in how we feel at the end of the day, and what kind of replenishment we need and what kind of refueling.
Absolutely. Like, as you were saying that, I'm like, this is going to sound funny. I guess people who've been there as a people pleaser will understand this, but like, it's helped me learn when and how to say no and how to deal with it in a positive way, regardless of how the other person deals with it. Because I don't like saying no and I don't like advocating for myself.
Yeah.
I can, but I don't. I typically like to help other people instead of myself. Everybody will probably hear Amara in a second because she is over here and trying to get the microphone. But it's been comforting to be able to, like, I'm not second guessing as much when I say no. I think it's the biggest thing because I have checked in with myself. I have taken that time to pause and reflect and receive and to know that what my intentions are. And like, I am responding rather than reacting because of the pause. And that's one of my favorite quotes. I can't tell you who it is. Like, when I post it, I'll put the thing in there, but it's that second between like when something happens, whether you're going to react or respond, that time matters. And doing this practice teaches me that pause to be able to move from reacting to response. And then I don't have as much shame or guilt associated with my thing, even when I would have still made the same decision. I don't have those negative feelings addressed, no, attached to it, because I've already like I am confident in my intentions. So it's just really freeing in that way too, of having that time to connect to yourself really does shift your energy and how you put out. Now, that doesn't mean I have not had that go well with everyone. I just feel better and am able to move forward even when it feels hard and doesn't go the way that I want.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Because like, I think, one, amazing job. And I love the way you worded that. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna steal clips of this podcast and use this, because you're saying things beautifully. And I love that, the idea that it gives you you're more self-confident to be able to say no. And I think being confident in our no's is so important. Like, if I could pass that on to all the women and all the little girls in my life, to be able to give a confident, it can be kind, but just straightforward and clear no, when it's a no, I would just love to be able to like give that to the world. So anyway, oh, now see, I've got too many squirrels in my brain. I've forgotten exactly what I was going to say. I just appreciate all that you were saying right there about the difference that it makes in our day to day and how we feel about ourselves. And I guess one thing I want to be clear, I feel like I've said this, but like, I wanted to get this out for other people, but a big push on myself was to get it out, was like, I need this too. I need to be able to roll over in bed and the morning and just hit play and start my day this way, even before I get out of bed. Or I need to be able to recenter myself, because, oh, this is where I was going with it. Because I think that we are called to be, and we are capable of being people of incredible resilience. And we're not just hoping and surviving the day. We're actually people that are thriving, and we're able to then like make things better as we go forward. So I very much so believe in that. And part of us being able to do that is that we are able to have that resiliency and develop that resiliency. And so, yeah, that's what I was going to say. So,
yeah, it's funny because before this, I was doing something. Something had come up in one of the chats that I'm in, and it kind of got like, it got uncomfortable. Like, so for me, I don't like doing anything like that over text. It's a big no for me. Typically, I'm going to stop and I'm either going to call you, send you a voice message, or something like that, because I myself
like, if it's a conversation, you don't want to have it over text.
Yeah, no, things can be dramatically. You do not read it, and you read what people say in the emotion you are in, not in how the person sends it. That's been a really tough lesson for me, especially as someone who used to be highly self-sabotaging and always thought everybody hated me and things like that. So if anybody sent anything to me, I automatically thought that it was judgmental or criticizing, or like, it didn't matter what it was. It didn't feel good because I didn't feel good. And I don't want to have my words taken that way to somebody else. But so I was able to sit in that uncomfortable spot without like, I was able to like kind of make a joke about it in the group, but just be like, I'm not engaging in this conversation. and we should be thoughtful with each other, but also not shut them down, because they very well could be absolutely fine with having this conversation. And it's not mine to micromanage, nor is it my duty to manage their responses or what they say to each other. Like, that's really, really hard. But this has also allowed me to see that and to know why it's triggering for me and what the intention is and why I feel that way. And like sometimes I get the gut thing to like reach out to people after separately just to be like, hey, I hope you didn't take it this way. Or, and it just allows me to again pause and, yeah, like, what is my role and am I why do I want to reach out? It's again moving from that wondering and stuff like that and into the action of questioning those feelings, and then seeing if I need to act on them. Most of the time, I do not. Most of the time, it's me trying to carry a burden or get my anxiety out by helping somebody else so I don't have to focus on me. Like, I'm very good at that. And it's really hard to stop doing it. And it's incredibly helpful to have a tool that reminds me to ask myself questions first.
I like that. That's a good point and a good like real life example, right? Because we've all had discussions and interactions where it's been difficult and where we want to really help the outcome come in a certain way.
Yeah, we're like, I'm going to coach this all the way to the end.
And we got to learn to let go sometimes. That's also part of self-care.
And I will be very honest, because I bet some of those in the chat before I listen to this. It started because I was venting off something that, had I asked a question before I did it, but I was really emotional at the time. It had happened at work, right? They announced over the intercom that we no longer had to wear masks, and there was just a lot of emotions of people around. And things being said that weren't kind or in good spirit. And then I got very bitter quickly about it. And had I just taken a moment to really, but I was very fired up and fired stuff off really quickly, and was like, right after I was like, I'm sorry, I'm bitter and just, I'm annoyed, but it is what it is. Like, I just wish we could all come together and know, like, we're all trying to do the best that we can. And that's what exploded into the thing. And I was like, oh, yep, that was me. I started that, knowing like how things are in the world. Like, we're all emotional. But yeah, I sent that off and I immediately was like, oh yeah, I probably should have questioned myself first.
But good job on like realizing it. Because previously, I'm guessing it took more than a second. Or it took.
I would have let that go on, and I would have taken the other person's response like personally, and then used that as the outlet for my anger or frustration. Or like, it's scary right now with things that are going on. And it's easy to take it out on the people we love the most and that are closest to us because it's safe. So now I'm like, oh, wait, I am safe now. Like, I don't have to take that out on the other people around me. And it's crazy because once you get there, you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense. But if you were to have, like, when we first met and going through what I was going through, when people would talk to me about that, I would get pissed. I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, that's easy for you to say. Look at you, full of love and light and people to help you in the support system. Lucky you.
It's amazing to see like how things change. And people can easily see somebody at like the middle or the end of their journey and compare that to the beginning of their own journey, and that's not that's not really helpful. Like I totally have a tendency to be like a loudmouth, like quick with responses. I have strong opinions. I don't think anybody would describe me as a people pleaser. Like I'm comfortable with telling people like, no, I'm very like a lot of mama bear energy for like social justice issues and, you know, like can go toe to toe or nose to nose, you know, like, but that's not what's always helpful, right? Like, you know, they say if the only tool that you have is a hammer, then you bring a hammer to every situation, you know, and I don't need to bring a hammer to every situation. Sometimes I need to shut my mouth and be quiet for a minute, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait. Just so everybody knows, I plan on having her back probably as many times as she'll come back. But in the future, I definitely plan on having another episode with her and talking to her about how we first met, where I was at when we first met, and walking you guys along the journey, because really a lot of my growth and changes started during that time period. And there was a time in my life where I wanted so badly. I admired her and just thought she was fantastic. But there was no way in my mind that I, one, could ever be worthy of her time or her friendship. And two, like, there was no connection. In my mind, I wasn't worthy, and we weren't ever going to be on the same level of helping. Like, you're out here being a justice warrior and you're helping, and you will come in there with that fire and ready to stand up. And I, quite frankly, felt shattered and unworthy and unlovable. So, like, there was no way in my mind it would ever happen. So then when we did connect and everything, again, this is just such a cool journey that we've been on. And I feel incredibly grateful and thankful to go from there to having you on the podcast. That, like, who would have thought that I ever would have done that, because I'm terrified of how people judging me, but I'm doing it. And then being able to have you on to share this that could help so many people.
I think it's amazing, you know, like when I reached out to you, because to me, you know, you just shared like your mindset of yourself and where you thought that things were. And to me, I was like, oh, cool. And she has a great heart. And like, I think she'd be great to like work together with, you know, and we'll discuss it on the next podcast.
Yeah.
Just like mind blowing, completely different views. And then seeing your journey and your honesty and your bravery in that honesty of like, this is where I'm really at. And then seeing that growth that you've done through all of your hard work and your intention, just been incredible.
Yeah. Likewise. So I think we are down to the wire. And so I will, when I post the episode, for people to look in the description. Hold on, I'm going to pause the recording real quick. So when I post the podcast in the description, I'm going to post links to things, but I'm going to give you a minute to say however you want to describe how to get a hold of you and things like that. And then we will definitely put all the information below so they can keep in touch with you, follow you, all of those good things, and find a way to this amazing, blessed app.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. And so, yeah, I'll give you guys some, like a free session, like an experience of it for all the listeners. And so we'll definitely include that link. I can't rattle it off of the top of my head, but we'll just include it in there for everybody. And I'm in the process of, rebranding my website, but the current one, which is from the health coaching, the singular, like just health coaching focus that I was doing before, is veronica-lamb.com. And I have transitioned towards just really owning that it's life and it's health coaching, because it's all the stress and the junk going on in life that affects the health decisions that we actually make and the actions that we follow through on. And so, yeah, I'm happy to connect with people. Like I love doing the one-on-one coaching like we've been doing, Brandy. And then occasionally I have those pop-up groups, but I'll share the link so that everybody can have experience of this meditation with God in the comfort of like their own space, and get a feel for it yourself and see if it makes a difference. And then if you want to go on a journey with it, I'm happy to help you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and much love and aloha to you.
Thank you. Have a beautiful springtime in the
Yes.
West.
Bye.
Okay, bye.